Hey guys and ghouls, this episode is a bit longer than usual, so we've split it into two parts. Basically, we thought that the conversation was worth keeping. We're just getting started and always improving, so we really welcome your feedback. You can reach us at necromancerpodcast@gmail.com, on Facebook at necromancerpod, and Instagram at the necromancer podcast. The following episode has been split into two parts. This is part two.
Well, what is there about Mary?
What is that something about Mary? I mean, she's just a cool chick. I think that so much of what Mary seems just feels like pure fantasy.
Yeah.
I love guys with braces. I mean maybe, but but yeah, I think that ultimately the thing that is the thing about Mary is that she's a fox. She foxy. And
Is
she's
Cameron Diaz a fox though? I'm not.
Oh,
I'm not really
controversy.
I guess. Yeah, even in movies like The Mask, where she plays the fox, I'm like, I don't know. She's not my type, I guess.
Maybe not, but okay, here's what I think that the appeal is that she is she's attractive, she's conventionally attractive, but she also seems nice and open and approachable, or at least as Mary, she always has a big smile on her face.
Right.
She's happy to see the people in her life, and she's, we talk about the Hitchcock blonde, for example, where the sort of stereotype of the blonde is a little different from how we know it today, where she's icy and like a marble statue and remote and unapproachable, whereas I think Mary is the opposite of that, where she's sunny, she's warm, she doesn't wear a bra half the time, she's just living fast and loose. Or, well, not really, but but I think that that's ultimately what it comes down to, is that she is approachable.
Is that why everyone has a crush on her?
I think so. And then she,
because there's some women who like the moment they show me just a little bit of interest, like a waitress or something. Like, here you go, hun. Like, ooh, she called me hun. Like, ooh. Yeah, there's definitely that thing of if what I think is interesting is in this movie he doesn't even have a crush on her right away.
Right.
She's just the basic sort of hot girl.
Right.
But she's really nice, and go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, the movie opens with him we can just get into it.
Right.
The movie opens with him asking out some other girl, and that girl being like, I kind of already have plans, maybe.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty funny from the start, where she's like, if my plans change, I will consider you.
Right. Well, no, it's funny because she says, I heard a rumor that the guy I like was going to ask me out, so yeah. And he's like, he does that great, Ben Stiller's great in this movie. He does that great, turn away and then turn back, and he's like, so is that a yes? Because she says yes to him, but she says there's another guy involved. So he's like, what's going on? And she's like, I thought I made it perfectly clear. If my plans fall through, maybe.
Right.
So, yeah, that was great. Great little opening scene to start us off on. Mm-hmm. And I really liked the actual opening, the claymation.
Wait, the claymation?
Yeah, the claymation of the song and all the birds and the bugs
Oh,
and
I didn't realize
it's
that
like
they
a
used
clay.
stop motion to
Yeah,
do
it's like
that.
stop motion It's
Oh yeah.
similar esque.
I love the chorus or the
Mm-hmm.
or the singers. I
Yeah.
wish that more movies did stuff like this because I really like
I
it.
was just gonna say, there's something about Mary. I haven't seen this movie since it came out on like
It's
DVD or
whimsical. It's
VHS.
more whimsical than you think it is.
Yeah, and this movie is not one of my go-tos. I wouldn't say I remembered it very fondly. I wouldn't even say now watching it that like it's the greatest movie I've ever seen.
Just
or-
better than Green Book.
Yeah. Well, I can't say
I
that
mean,
because
well,
I haven't
no,
seen
it's true,
Green Book,
yeah.
but yes. But like, I just this movie doesn't do it for me. But there's so many moments in this movie where I found myself laughing or chuckling. Like this movie has a pretty high chuckle per minute rate.
It's actually a really smart movie. Or smarter than I think it's given credit for.
Yeah.
As far as like what they try to do. Like I had read in the past that the singers are inspired by. There's a movie with Jane Fonda called Cat Ballou. Have you ever
Okay.
seen it? It's like a western, and there's at the beginning of the movie, kind of like there's something about Mary. You've got these singers that are like telling the tale of Cat Ballou,
Right.
Jane Fonda's character, and so like. I don't know. I watch a movie like There's Something About Mary, and I can tell that the Farley brothers are good, cinema watchers. Like they know their history.
Yeah.
I feel like clearly like screwballs
Right.
and have some inspiration from older movies, but it's not like they're getting, fawned over like Quentin Tarantino or something like that. But they're watching the same movies. That's what I'll
Right.
say is like they're watching the same movies. They're just doing different things. But yeah, I love the singers. I love the way that the movie starts off and
Yeah, and how it starts out with like the "There's Something About Mary" song, and then that song keeps coming in through the singers all throughout. Yeah, I was gonna say, why don't more rom-coms do this? Like, once this became a thing, once "There's Something About Mary" did it, why didn't it? Like, why wouldn't every other movie just start doing that? It's so good in this
there are
movie.
a couple.
Are there?
Um,
I
there's
know
a-
Rango did it, but
Rango
that's
does
like
it.
that's a
It's
western.
like a kids movie, yeah.
I was gonna say a
westerns,
western.
do it. Little Cat
Right.
Ballou did
Cat
it.
Ballou, so
Rango.
Yeah, Rango pulling that Cat
I'm trying to
Ballou.
think of another rom-com that did this. There's a movie, I don't know what theme we would squeeze it in for, but there's a movie called Get Over It. And in the beginning of the movie, after he gets dumped, like an entire marching band starts passing by him and playing Love Will Keep Us Together. And it's a really
Yeah.
funny moment because he's like all like dour faced, I just got dumped. And then there's this like really bright, happy marching band just coming around him singing this song. But yeah, I would like to see that more in rom-coms. And it surprises me that these two bros are the ones that decide to do something,
Right.
so kind of fairy tale like.
Yeah. It was just a great way to like spice up parts of the movie and to fit everything together sort of thematically. I thought it was great.
Oh yeah, I like also their outfits change where they are, like when the singers are or when the players are in Rhode Island, they're wearing winter clothes, and then
Right.
when they get to Miami, they're wearing their
Yeah.
Miami clothes.
Yeah, it was just nice. A nice touch.
Nice touch. So Ted Ben Stiller asks out that one girl. She says no.
She says no. So then we get the introduction to Mary, who rides into school on her bike, and she's basically it's just like your favorite rom-com. What is it called?
Oh, 10 Things I Hate
10
About
Things
You.
I Hate About You, We're like,
It's very Bianca-esque.
yeah, very Bianca-esque. And then we get Warren. Warren comes into this movie super quick, and he's, have you seen my baseball? Have you seen my baseball? Have you seen my wiener? And his, what did you think about Warren as a character? Does it age well?
I wonder. In some ways, I think it doesn't, but I feel like they also, maybe I'm too much of a defender for this movie. I feel like any times that Warren was used, he wasn't like his being mentally retarded wasn't we weren't joking at his expense.
Right.
Like, he moved some of the jokes, but it wasn't like, haha, look, he's retarded. It was more like, look at these people and how they react to Warren and what does it say about them. Like, the guy who told Warren to say, have you seen my wiener, is clearly an asshole.
Right. Even the guy, like the boyfriend of that girl, is like like you can clearly tell something's not right. And like he comes up, he's like, "Hey, don't touch my car. What'd you say to her? What'd you say?" Like, he's just he's just a young high school boy who wants to get into a fight. And he's just looking for any excuse to get into a fight. So yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
But yeah, none of the jokes tend to be at Warren's expense, except like I do feel like the Warren is super strong thing, and like any of the jokes that resulted from Warren like smashing someone, that felt like maybe it's probably a little bit insensitive, but I don't know. Yeah, it just made me think of Mice and Men, and I don't know if that's like a stereotype for people who are mentally retarded, that they're somehow too strong. But I don't know if that's necessarily a helpful stereotype.
Right. I don't know. I feel the same way. I feel like Warren is never really the butt of any jokes. So that it's like, I think it's, for a movie that has like come on an ear, it's, pretty reserved when it comes to Warren.
Right.
So, yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting.
And ultimately, how Warren is treated is what makes the difference on whether or not Mary would even consider someone as a romantic partner.
Correct, because Ted steps in to stop the fight between douchebag and Warren, and then Mary comes in, and you guys like, "Oh, that's your brother? I didn't know. I didn't realize." So he steps off, and then they walk home. Ted gives Warren gives Ted a piggyback ride, and then they switch, which is very funny. But then Mary asks Ted out.
I liked that.
Yeah, that was really nice. Woogie's out of the picture, but so Ted is in. Ted brags to all his friends. They doubt him, but he goes to pick her up.
In that brown suit.
Great suit. And then we get Keith David as the stepfather.
I wish there was more Keith David in this movie.
Yeah, I totally forgot he was in this. But yeah, wow. I could have used more of him, for sure.
Oh, definitely.
I think that's one of my things about this movie is it has so many great side characters, but it kind of throws a lot of them away. Doesn't really utilize a lot of them to their fullest.
No, it's crazy. Like, a few times like side characters are like, I know you from somewhere. Or like even just like Chris Elliott.
Chris Elliott is fantastic.
He's
great in general. But yeah, he's kind of like he's kind of, just meh in this movie. Not like he's meh in this movie, but his character is meh in this movie.
Right.
So yeah, he goes to pick her up, and he jokes around with her, saying like, "Oh, Mary already went to the prom with Woogie 4 hours ago, or whatever." So we get another 10 Things I Hate About You type reference. The double prom date mix up.
Oh yeah.
But then that's just a joke. Keith David's having a laugh at poor Ted's expense. Ted finds it hilarious, of course. Then we get the whole baseball thing where he pulls the baseball out of Warren's ear. Warren goes nuts, smashes him around. But I like that where he's like, no, there was a baseball here, I swear. Like the baseball got lost in the thing. And then I like how he yells at Keith David, and Keith David's like, are you yelling at me? He's like, no.
It's like the worst things that could happen if you go to your prom date's house.
But it's all so exaggerated that I don't like. I love Curb Your Enthusiasm for some of those awkward type real life situations, but I just love Larry David in general. I think he's great.
Oh yeah.
But there's so many movies where I see it where it's like, let's try to put this character through the ringer and really make every situation awkward. Did you ever see that movie with Sarah Jessica Parker? It was called like Keeping Up with the Stones or something with
The Family Stone?
Yeah, The Family Stone. Did you ever see that movie?
I've seen parts of it. I don't remember all of it, but it looked painful.
It is. It's just a painful movie. I'm sure there's many more like it, but for some reason that's the first one that came to my mind. Where like they really just try to make that character go through lots of awkward situations. But
it's a different kind of torture porn.
Yeah, and I can't get into it. There was an HBO series, Hello Ladies, with Stephen Merchant. Couldn't get into that either.
Too awkward.
Way too awkward. Way too painful. But when Larry David gets into a situation, oh boy, I love every single time that happens.
Yeah, I feel like distance seems to be the key there because, like, we can be distant enough from Larry David to not feel, like, too much empathy for him.
I think the great thing about Larry David is that, one, usually he brings it upon himself. Right. Like, the escalation, it doesn't start out with something awkward. It starts out with something normal that he makes awkward through some social convention of his own.
Right.
And then it escalates through a series of mishaps. It escalates into like something way bigger than it needs to be. But what I love about Larry David is that 50% of the time I am totally in Larry David's camp where I'm like, yeah, you can't take too many samples at the ice cream store. You get like 3 samples and then you're done. But then there's so many, like then 50% of the time I'm thinking, oh, Larry, oh, you are not right in this scenario. Like, so I think having that sort of affability of like half the time you're in his camp and half the time you're thinking, why would you do that?
That's a good point.
Yeah. I think that's part of the Larry David charm.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I like that better. It's interesting to me, like, that I don't care about the punishment that Ted takes in this movie, but what you described is how I felt about watching Meet the Parents. Like, I felt like in that movie, it's just like punishment after punishment after punishment.
Like when he breaks that girl's nose. That lady's nose, and it's just like, and then everyone hates him. Yeah,
and it keeps going and going and going without any kind of relief, and it feels just bad to watch. I don't know, and it's not funny to me.
I think, like in this movie, he tries to do something nice by giving Warren a baseball. But then it goes horribly wrong, and then he's yelling at Keith David, and Keith David's like, are you yelling at me? And he's like really sheepish, and he's like, no, I tried to give, I don't know the difference between the two. Why this one is funny and Meet the Parents is painful.
Right. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I think that it depends, like, I mean, at least in Meet the Parents, the romantic plot is already resolved. Maybe that's why it's less easy for me to like it. But then, like with Larry David and Curb Your Enthusiasm, all of that potential has been resolved as well. So I don't know. Like, it's a good question, like when it's painful versus when it's funny. But yeah, it just keeps escalating from there, right? So after that whole thing happens.
After that whole thing happens, he goes to the bathroom And of course, Mary's strap gets broken in the process of the scuffle, so she has to go get her strap fixed. And Ted goes to the bathroom. While Ted is peeing, he's looking out the window, and there's that. What's the name of that song? Does it have a name? Just why do birds suddenly appear?
Suddenly,
I don't know.
God, I know that it's a Burt Bacharach song. Close to You.
Okay, so Close to You starts playing, and he's looking at these birds, and it's a great use of the song, and it's a great use of these two doves, and the doves fly away, and as he's peeing, he gets a glimpse of Mary in her bra, and she's half naked, and she's getting changed, and they look and they see him peeing, and it's very awkward, and he gets flustered, and he zips up way too fast, and then he gets caught in the zipper. So 30 minutes later, he's still in there, doesn't know what to do, so Keith David goes in, and then the mom goes in, and then the policeman shows up.
And the fireman.
And then the fireman, Lenny Clark, as the fireman comes in. And it's just like the whole town. I could have used even just like 2 or 3 more people coming in.
Oh, yeah.
It was a great gimmick. I just, like, even like that sort of fairy tale-esque, like...
You gotta see this.
Yeah, that fairy tale-esque way the cop just shows up.
He literally sticks
at
his
the
head
window.
in the bathroom window, yeah.
And like, how is Mary's house divided up? Like, it's got a courtyard in the middle of it. It's
something like that.
And so, like, how did the policeman even get to that window? I don't know, but it's very funny. And then they even show it at one point, and it looks...
Oh, God. It looks... Did that hurt you to see?
Yes. Yes. And then it's funny, you know, you get the Franks and beans thing, but it's very funny when it's like, how'd you get the beans above the Frank? It's very awkward, but for some reason, I don't know, this movie just has that magical, like, way of making all the awkwardness just even funnier.
Oh, yeah. And, like, even just, like, the way that they made it look when they showed it was really funny. I think this is definitely what makes you know that you're watching a guy's romantic comedy versus just a standard one where like Mary would have been the protagonist, is just, like, so many dick jokes.
Yeah.
But funny, like, and it works. Yeah. Oh God, that scene. You know what's funny? Slight tangent, but I was looking up romantic comedy on TV tropes, because when I think of a romantic comedy, I think of a movie like this one where the guy is the protagonist, you know, like 40-year-old virgin. And then there's more like physical humor and stuff like that. But ultimately, the plot is still romantic. TV tropes, for some reason, defines a romantic comedy as one where it has all the notes of a romantic comedy, but it's about bros getting together. So, like, they say that The Hangover is a bromantic comedy.
I would definitely say The Hangover is a bromantic comedy, because it's about the bromance of the men coming together.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a romantic comedy is still a romantic comedy, even if a guy is the protagonist. I didn't think of it as like, oh, that the plot has to be about bros getting together and finding love as bros.
Yeah, I don't know. Because when I think of like 40-year-old virgin, I'm surprised there isn't a term for like male leads versus female leads.
Because they have different feels to them.
Right, they do.
Like, because this is really from Ted's perspective, it's a very different movie than what it would be from Mary's perspective.
Yes, but that's why, especially for the stalker genre, like that's why people getting stalked isn't funny.
Right, it has to be Ted.
Yeah, it has to be. Huh. Yeah. So then, Oh, probably one of the greatest cuts
Yeah.
in movie history is the cut from pulling the zipper to "We've Got a Bleeder." That is just, it's so, like, we don't need the aftermath of the pulling. We don't need the scream. We don't, like, just the 1, 2, 3, we got a bleeder. Like,
Oh, I thought that was a
it's
great
simple
cut.
and it's great. It's, yeah, just what a cut.
I also liked that they had Mary holding the towel over him as he was getting into the ambulance, and then they actually drop the stretcher
Right,
before
yeah,
they
yeah.
get him in. Oh yeah, that was some great physical comedy.
But then, I mean, this whole thing is just part of Ted's awkward teenage years, and we cut to adult Ted in therapy, hashing it out, talking about Mary.
With the dad from Step Brothers.
Yes.
Also
Richard Jenkins.
Richard Jenkins, also an amazing cameo.
Yeah, I don't know at this point if that was a cameo or if that was just his, you know what I mean?
Oh, just his character.
He was
yeah.
just, I don't know, when did There's Something About Mary come out? 90?
I think it's like 1999.
99?
Something like that.
I think at that point, Richard Jenkins might have just been a no-name bit character actor.
Oh man, they should have known. They should have known
Right.
then, because he's even in just like this part,
Even
he's
in,
so good.
yeah, just like every little mannerism he has. But then, yeah, so the therapist comes in. Ted's got his back to the therapist. So the therapist comes in from eating his lunch. And I love how he just like picks up on the last thing that Ted says, which is, I got so hyperventilated that I had to pull over to a rest stop. And he's like, oh, those are gay hotspots. And which of course comes back later. But yeah, so he's in therapy talking about Mary, and then he's talking to Dom, Chris Elliott, about Mary, and they're at the house, and I love the baking cookies part.
Oh my
Where,
god, what a douchebag!
he's such a douche to his wife, but she's totally into it.
I mean,
know what I mean?
guess so.
She's like, she never rolls her eyes or scoffs at him. She's totally into it, which I think is such a great reversal, or, like, I don't know. They make the married life seem like, from the guy's perspective, the greatest thing in the world.
Well, yeah, I think that we're meant to think that, like, as Ted is seeing this,
Right.
he's like, oh, wow, they have a nice marriage.
Yeah.
I don't know. I watched that and I was like, what the hell?
From a normal human being perspective, clearly the relationship they have is messed up.
Yes.
But from this fairy tale-esque
The
relationship,
cookies are coming.
right? Here's your cigar, honey. Do you need anything? Yeah, go bake some cookies. Okay, I'll get right on it. It's so, I don't know. It's so over the top, but it's also like in most rom-coms like this, the guy who's married is miserable.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
It depends. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they're not. In the movie Return to Me, Minnie Driver has a couple of married friends, and they are like a good couple. Or like in.
But that's Minnie Driver. So are her married friends women who are married?
No.
They're guys who are married.
Well, no, she's friends with a couple, like a guy and the couple.
That doesn't count.
Yeah, I guess that doesn't count.
Because couples are usually happy.
Yeah, couples are, but married men.
But married, right? Married men are usually miserable.
I don't know. I think it depends on the movie.
Could be.
But
I feel like that's kind of the standard go-to.
But we also find out that Dom is miserable regardless.
I don't think he's miserable. I think he's just compelled by his clear psychosis. So yeah, but Dom suggests that he get Pat Healy, the firm's private investigator, to go hunt down Mary. And then we get the great Pat introduction scene.
Oh my God.
Which, I mean, this is just one of those things where, like, again, I mean, this movie, I probably won't watch it regularly.
Of course not.
But there's something about, like, the little touches of Pat standing up for the first time and his pants are unzipped. And he's got to tuck himself in, zip up, belt up, double check the door, lock the door, and then, like, you know, say, like, why do you want me to find this girl? Something about just the way his pants are undone is, like, so perfectly sleazy. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I just feel like if I were Matt Dillon, I would have had the time of my life playing this role.
Great role for him.
So good.
He's perfect. He's pitch perfect in it.
Oh, he might be the funniest person in this movie, actually.
For sure.
And yeah, even the way that they do his office with like the pinup models, and he's just so sleazy. He asks at like a bar where they clearly just do beer for a whiskey sour. Yeah,
like I work right now my part-time gig is an overnight security guard. So I have all night just to myself, where I sit in an office and I have no one in the same building as me and I can do whatever I want. I never once have thought, you know, I could probably undo my belt, undo my pants, probably take it easy, you know, let a load off or whatever. Like, this guy's in a crowded office building. I mean, maybe not crowded, but like, this guy's in a regular office building with people all around. And the first thing he does when he gets into that office is whoosh, make himself comfortable. It's perfect.
I've definitely unzipped my pants after a very full lunch.
Right.
But I don't think I've ever taken them off at the office.
But then, so the only thing we know about Mary is that she's in Miami.
That's it.
So Pat has to go down to Miami and we meet up with Sully, who is not an alcoholic anymore, not doing drugs anymore, and is Jeffrey Tambor.
Yeah, I was about to ask. It's from Arrested Development, right?
Yes.
Yes. No, I thought his bit part was also really good.
So great. So good. Even just, he's a great actor in general,
yeah.
Right? I'm also thinking of the Larry Sanders Show. Have you
I
ever
haven't seen it.
Oh, no. Man, that's a great one. Just his mannerisms and just, you know, like, does the dog bite? A little. Get in. He's got such great line delivery in this movie. But Sully sets Healy up with Mary's information. So Healy decides to do a little bit of stalking himself. Tracks down Mary, stalks her, learns all about her. It just takes one look and he's instantly in love, of course. Well, maybe not in love, but infatuated.
Right, yeah. I mean, he watches her at the driving range. Right. He sees her dropping off food for the homeless.
Yep.
Doing all sorts of great things.
She has a conversation with her friends, one of which is Sarah Silverman.
That's right.
And they talk about the men that they'd like, and he starts spying on her and learning all about the kind of man that she would like.
Someone who's been to Nepal, apparently.
Yes. Who is an architect, has been to Nepal, and loves sports. So, yeah. I mean, it is kind of funny how clearly made up of a character she is.
Right. And I mean, there's not to say that there's not women who like sports. There's actually a lot of women who like sports. I myself, I'm a really big fan of combat sports. I like mixed martial arts and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I do feel like we're out there, we like different sports, but like the completeness of Mary's fantasy interest, she likes sports. She likes boys with braces.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much everything other than like wanting an architect who has time to travel. It sounds like something a man would want a woman to be
Right.
into rather than a woman. But like, yeah, definitely, I think her wanting a guy who could be around,
Sure.
that rings true. I don't know how much of that is like Cameron Diaz bringing some real female energy to the character or just the way that they wrote it. But yeah, a lot of the stuff that Mary likes does feel very much like a fantasy.
Yeah. And then we also meet Magda, who is her roommate of sorts.
Right.
Magda, of course, is kind of a character herself, very tan, overly tan, you might say. Very much in love with her dog. What was the dog's name? Puffy.
Puffy, yes.
Puffy. So where are
A
we?
lot happens to Puffy.
Yes. Right. So then we go back to Boston, and Healy.
Was this before or after Magda flashes him?
Oh, well, this is after.
What did you think of that switcheroo?
That was shocking, of course. I mean, at one point you almost see Cameron Diaz take off her shirt. So, of course, he switches binoculars to get the extra big ones out, to get the extra close look at those bad girls, I should say. And, then when you cut back to that really awkward, half-tan, wrinkly...
I mean, it was so obviously fake.
Right, very fake.
I don't know. I like that they teased the fan service and then they
The bait
gave
and
you
switch.
something else and they're like, fuck you, this is a comedy.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a gross out humor type thing. So, of
That's
course,
true, yeah.
you know.
It's ageist, but yeah.
But yeah, we get a sneak peek at the Franks and Beans. We get the whole shebang with the not full frontal nudity, but the half frontal nudity with Magda. But then Healy goes back to Ted and gives Ted the full rundown on Mary, which of course is that she's got 4 kids from 3 different fathers. She's moving to Japan.
It's the good news. She's
right.
not married.
Yeah, the good news. She's never been married. So yeah, and she's in a wheelchair. So he basically is gaslighting Ted to think that Mary is not worth pursuing so that he can move down to Miami and pursue her himself. Yes. I of course like the way that he blows Ted off. Like, on the one hand, when he meets up with Ted, he's overly friendly.
Right.
Because he's giving him all the wrong information. But then the very next scene, he makes zero qualms about blowing Ted off.
Oh, well,
and just being a total sleazeball to him.
Ted actually, I think, again, like, we're supposed to see this as, like, evidence that, like, Ted's the one that really loves Mary because
Right.
he's heard all this stuff about her and he still wants to see her. Mm-hmm. He still wants to check that she's okay.
Yeah.
And then that's when Pat's like, oh, no.
No, don't do it. Either way, we go to lunch with Dom, and Healy moves down to Miami. Mm-hmm. And then he starts to put his plan into action, which is he goes
With
golfing.
all his stalking info.
Yes, he goes golfing right next to her at the driving range and subtly drops that he's been to Nepal because of all those damn Nepalese coins.
All I've got are these Nepalese coins.
It's so funny.
Awful.
It's so funny. And then, of course, all the blueprints fall out of his car. He already knows Mary's name, but that's, of course, because it's on her golf bag. It's very funny. But then it's so funny how, like, on the one hand, he has all this information to be the dream man for Mary, and he's doing his best to apply that information. But then he drops things like, yeah, I work with retards, and they keep them in cages.
Oh my God.
The moment he says I work with retards,
part.
I couldn't help but laugh out loud because it's like, buddy,
Yeah.
you are so off base here.
I feel like that's, again, like the important difference. That
Right.
If the movie were making fun of people who were mentally retarded
Yep.
versus making fun of this clear asshole for saying something so stupid.
Yeah, it's very funny. And then later, well, I guess we can just get into it now, but later when he goes to meet up with Mary at her house, and he overhears about the dog, and he gives the dog the sleeping pills, or the Xanax or whatever.
Yeah.
He, he's like on the one in one line he says, my Nepalese name was, I don't know what it is, but it's like Kintanti.
Oh, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and he's like, he's like, my name is Kintanti, which means he who loves animals and is loved back by those animals. Hey, you have any brewskis? Like, it's so funny. Like, what was the term that she uses for him? A mooch or something?
Yeah, something
She
like
calls
that.
him like a mooch.
Oh, yeah, like she knows that he's awful. Like,
And it's great.
He's like, oh, he's not even that attractive.
Right.
But it's the inside that counts.
Yeah. It is the inside that counts.
I think that's the other thing, again, where, like, Mary's the perfect woman because she's hot, but she doesn't care if
Right.
you're hot.
Yeah. So then they go on a series of dates.
I like that music cue, too. The is she really going out with him?
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
It's really good. And then at the end of the date, he asks, it's almost like he's got this weird quirk and he's ashamed of it, but he asks to touch her bosoms and she's totally into it. She lets him do it. Like, I could not imagine any world where this would be okay.
I mean, he did ask.
He did ask, but it's so weird how teen boy, like, they're adults. You know what I mean? But he doesn't go in for a kiss. He goes in for the feel up.
For the boob grab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So weird, but so funny. He almost thinks of it as like a vice, the way he approaches it, how he asks her, like he's ashamed of it. It's just funny. Like, again, Matt Dillon hamming up the role, having a great time with it. Meanwhile, Ted has found out that Mary is a total fox, and he decides he's going to go down to Miami and meet up with her.
I like that he gets into Dom's presentation to
Yeah.
tell him that he's like, screw all of this. You need to know.
But it's also funny how he's like trying to give them this rundown of like what would happen if this horrific crash happened, and the it's just like great little touches like that make this movie where the person's like, well, what happens if the families don't want to pursue a class action? That's what I've been trying to explain to you this whole time. It's so funny. But then we get another great cameo, Harlan Williams as the hitchhiker.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I loved the 6-minute abs joke.
Yeah, 7-minute abs is his pitch, because if you're going to see a 7-minute abs versus 6 minutes or 8-minute abs, which are you going to pick? Gonna go with the 7 minutes, right?
Right.
Unless, of course, someone comes up with 6-minute abs, which I love Harlan Williams' little like twinge
like,
that he has.
no.
Like, it doesn't compute, but he also he has a great reason why 6-minute abs should never be a thing, but he's totally into his own 7-minute abs.
Oh, and also, if you're not happy with 7 minutes, you get a
Yeah.
bonus minute.
They'll mail you the extra minute. But he's got this red duffel bag in the seat with him, which is
Yes.
way too large to be anything convenient.
It's very body shaped.
Right. So then Ted just can't take any more of it. He's got to go to the bathroom, take a break from this guy. And of course, the moment he steps out of the car and into the field to take a piss, he trips over someone, and the police lights turn on, and it's a raid. and it's a gay orgy, you could
I
say.
guess so, at the rest stop. I mean, it does feel a little bit homophobic, the way that this movie stages the gay jokes, but...
Is it? Like, how many other gay jokes
I mean, it's
are there,
specifically,
really?
I guess, about the rest stop, and I think it's implied,
Right.
too, that Richard Jenkins knows about the rest stop because
Yeah.
he goes there.
Could be.
And,
But there's just something so funny about...
and, like, he's right at face level with someone's crotch,
Right,
too, when
right,
the lights
right.
come up.
The misunderstandings in this movie are perfectly
Yes.
placed. But it's just so funny, just the visual of the lights coming on and then, like, all these men running away like cockroaches.
Yeah. Oh, no, I thought that was great. Did you notice that the cop, one of the cops that interrogated him, I don't know what this actor's name is, but he's the bad guy
Oh.
from Kindergarten Cop?
Oh, I didn't write down the actor's name. But yes, I wrote down Crisp from Kindergarten Cop. I wrote that down in my notes. Yeah, totally. The moment I saw him, because I'm a huge Arnold fan.
Right.
And Kindergarten Cop is a great movie. Ivan Reitman.
is.
It's a fantastic movie. And yeah, Crisp from Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah, he was there playing the cop this time.
Playing the overheated bad cop.
Yeah. And that was a good misunderstanding bit, too.
Yes.
Where they're like, how many times have you done this?
Yeah, so the cops have found out that the red duffel bag in the car, in the passenger seat, is a dead body. Because, of course, the moment all the cops show up, Harlan Williams runs away.
Right.
They take Ted in. Ted thinks he's being arrested for one of two things, which is one, being at the gay orgy, and two, picking up a hitchhiker. And the cops are interrogating him over the dead body in his car, which he has no idea about. So, of course, there's that great little thing of like, oh, yes, I did it, of course. You know, I did it because I was bored. All these great jokes about the misunderstanding there. But, so Ted gets thrown into jail. Mary has a little scene with Tucker where Healy overhears her talking about how much she loves big pearly whites.
And I liked that scene so much because, like, he's, like, got, like,
Right.
the sticks in his face, like he's, like, a walrus or
Right.
something, and they're literally just joking around, but Pat is listening
Has no
so
idea that they're-
closely.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has no idea that what she's saying is tongue-in-cheek, but so he takes it seriously.
God, those
Great little joke.
veneers. Literally just the biggest veneers.
It's
Bigger
so
than
great.
Gary Busey's.
Yeah, it's I'm surprised they didn't do some kind of like black light joke in there at some
God.
point.
I like that he also only did it on his top teeth.
Right.
So on top they just look like cartoons, and then
Right.
on the bottom they're
It's
tiny.
What did you think about Tucker's disability and how he drops his keys and has to waggle down?
Well, I think it's really funniest knowing that it's not a real disability,
Right.
that this guy is faking this disability to make
Yeah.
this woman feel sorry for him. That's ultimate. Like, I think that if you are savvy enough to assume from the get that Tucker is not really being honest, then that scene is really funny.
I had no idea.
Oh, you didn't remember?
I did not remember. Even the first time I saw it, I probably had no idea. Mm-hmm. I was just totally into Tucker being Tucker.
What's funny is that actor is actually British, so his real speaking voice is.
Right.
I don't think it's like as like posh as he's trying to sound as Tucker.
Right.
But the actual actor is like a British comedian.
And the moment I saw him, just like Chris from Kindergarten Cop, that guy was in Fifth Element.
Oh, he was in Fifth Element?
Yeah, he plays like the guy who's the second in charge. And remember, then the captain dies and he's in charge, and Bruce Willis comes up to him and he's like, you know, mind if I take over negotiations? And boom, shoots the guy in the head. He's like, anyone else want to negotiate? I love Fifth Element.
Oh, The Fifth Element's great.
I've seen that. Whenever people ask me like, "What's your favorite movie?" and stuff, I could name 100 movies. But if anyone ever asks me, "What's the movie you've seen the most?" Like no joke, at least triple digits. Fifth Element.
Oh, wow, really?
I've seen that movie like once a month. I'll watch that movie.
That movie has good original music in it, too.
Yeah. Speaking, we didn't talk about the music for It Follows, but I really liked it.
Also has both of these movies, Mary and It
Yeah.
Follows, have great original scores and music. Like, I wish that more movies, maybe it's just a budget thing,
Right.
but I like a movie that has a really fun score a lot more than one with a ton of needle drops where it's
Right.
just like that's one of the things where like the Marvel movies have a lot of really nostalgic needle drops and then really generic orchestral scores that are
Right.
just like triumphant hero music. I don't know. I like a movie that has a really unique and original score that like makes you remember
Yeah.
that movie really well. I don't know.
The problem with big budget Hollywood movies is that when they make the movie and they edit the movie, they edit it with temp music. And usually the music that they use is music from other movies.
Right.
And then they get a composer to come in and redo the music. But when they show the movie to the composer, most of the time, probably what happens is they say, hey, this temp music we have in here, we want it to sound like that. Because that's how we cut the movie. And that's the music that we have in mind. So the
Interesting.
reason why a lot of movies sound the same is that, yeah, they use this temp music and then they get the composer just to make music that sounds like it. So what most movies, the score is kind of an imitation of other scores.
That's really interesting. I wonder like when they started doing things that way because I got really interested in the composer for a lot of Fellini movies. His name is Nino Rota. And I was just looking into their relationship. And I guess it's different if you have like an auteur director and
Right.
he's like buddy buddies with a particular composer. But like literally what he would do is send Nino the script of his movie and then Nino would just start like jazzing and
Right.
coming up with themes for it and then like present those to Fellini. But I guess when you're like a madcap Italian too, you get to do things a little bit different.
I was going to say my version of that would be Sergio Leone and Ennio Morricone.
Oh yeah, did
Right.
they do kind of a similar thing where he'd like tell Ennio kind of what his idea was, and Ennio would just be like, "I got it."
I don't know how exactly. I've never like researched exactly how they work together. I'm sure there's information out there that I could find, and probably in like buried in IMDb trivia. There's information that I've probably read about it,
Right.
but just like the good, the bad, the ugly, and how the score fits in with the visuals and how everything's kind of cut together, and like the music informs the cinema,
Oh
the
yeah.
cinematic visuals, and vice versa. Whereas with like your standard Hollywood movie, it feels very much like the music comes second.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I feel like it's just like at different periods
Right.
in film, music has been more or less important because like I think even like in the 40s too, they didn't really start getting into using these like heavy orchestral scores until like a lot of refugees from European cinema started coming in and like bringing that expertise. But yeah, I don't know. I'd like to see a lot more scores
Right.
in movies. But back to Mary.
Back to Mary.
So we've got the veneers now.
Yes.
And what happens after that? It's isn't that like the next scene is she's like on like Tucker tells Mary that Pat is like not who he says he is, and then Pat has to like turn it around.
Yeah, so in that scene, Tucker, who is an architect at this point,
Yeah.
he says, I've looked into Healy, and he is not who he says. He never got his architecture degree from Harvard, and I looked all over and I couldn't find him. Blah blah blah. So that of course throws a wrench in Healy's plans. And the next scene is Ted getting out of jail.
Right.
That might be the one bit of homophobic. Just like all the gay men scattering feels like it feels funny, but the gay spooning in the jail,
that felt homophobic.
that does maybe feel a little bit. That one maybe hasn't aged as well, but even then it feels. I don't know.
He didn't seem like he was raped, just
right,
cuddled.
Yeah, aggressively cuddled, maybe even. Yeah, there's something about it, just the way the guy's like, "Oh man," it's there's something kind of.
It's cheeky.
Yeah, nothing about this movie feels overly offensive because it always just feels light and charming. This whole movie just feels charming, even when it... Oh, right. So we get the series of... we get more dates from Ted and Mary. And I love when Ted... Or not Ted and Mary. Healy and Mary. Mm-hmm. And Healy goes to drop her off at work, I guess. And I love when he starts making out with her.
Oh God, and like really using an aggressive amount of tongue too.
Yeah, and the way she's like, "Hey, how's my stomach taste?" And he like repeats the line like, "How's my stomach taste?" She says, like, he's such a sleazeball.
Oh my God.
But then we get Frank's and Beans. Frank's and Beans comes back. Yeah, Mary's like Mary and her family. Even like Keith David, they really love ragging on Ted. Like, she's like, hey, we should catch up sometime. She's like, didn't we just do that? And he's like left in that awkward spot.
Well, yeah, but I think, again, that's meant to be part of what makes Mary so cute is
So
that she's
affable.
like, oh, I'm just fucking with
Yeah.
you. Haha.
It is. But yeah, and Ted is such the sort of sap that like he makes a good mark. He makes an easy mark.
Oh, yeah. And she just blows off Pat to go date Ted. She does not care. I like that Mary's like, yeah, I'm done. Whatever.
Yeah. It is funny how quickly she turns on him, even before Tucker. I mean, this is where we get into the thing where Tucker calls Mary and says, like, hey, he's a killer, which is like... I didn't know if he was being serious at first or not. Like, I thought maybe Healy was legitimately a killer for a second. Because he's so sleazy.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
If that's part of his character background.
And then we get, of course, the famous cleaning the pipes before the date scene.
Oh, gosh. The one for which I feel like when this movie came out, that scene... was all anyone could talk about in reference to this movie.
Oh, yeah.
And it would always be like a shot of the movie and specifically the part with her hair sticking up.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's probably like the most memeable, gifable part of this movie. Before memes and gifing was a thing.
So is this a thing? Is this like a guy thing that's known in Guylandia, as I'm going to call it temporarily?
I wouldn't. I mean, you've been with guys. So
I lived with two guys in college, so I feel like...
So there's
qualified.
Definitely like the 90s sitcom or 90s comedian
Like
sort
the
of
Contest in
approach
Seinfeld.
to, right, or not approach, but there's definitely that jokiness about like how men are different before and after, you know? And it is like even physiologically a thing where like after you feel more tired, you feel more relaxed.
Right.
But I don't think as a teenager I ever would have thought to do this as like, a strategic maneuver. You know what I
Right.
mean? So like I don't think that that's a thing per se.
Do you think people thought about this before this movie came out? I mean, they had to have for it to get in the script, but
Right, someone had to have thought about it at some point. I don't know if the Fairley brothers thought of it themselves or if it was something like from one of their friends who thought it or it, but I never was like that guy who was like chasing chicks all the time. You know what I mean? I was more quiet and shy.
waiting
I was more
for them
nerdy.
to come to you.
Yeah, I was waiting for Annie at the bus stop to come to me from Halloween. So I don't know. I was never into like even like kissing and telling. Like I was never eager to share my stories with women to other guys, and I never really cared to hear about their stories or sexual conquests. And I didn't have friends who thought like that.
Right.
So I like that whole Dom persona of like oh yeah, you gotta flog the dolphin, you gotta choke the chicken, you gotta
He talks about it in the grossest possible
right
terms.
and this movie feels almost like a predecessor to what's his name, you said 40-Year-Old Virgin. Judd Apatow. It feels like the predecessor to Line-O-Rama type comedy. Where it's
yeah.
how many different... I even feel like in
Line-O-Rama, that's a perfect way to describe that phenomenon.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about, where it's just like
I think
take.
it's I think that's what they call it in the special features on the DVDs of those, where they just have all the different versions of all the lines that they could just replace in there. So if you need a line like, oh, masturbating, choking the chicken, like a lot of times, yeah, they'll just have different versions of that, and it's just over. You know how I know you're gay. Oh, you know how I know you're gay. That kind of stuff, over and over and over.
I mean, from a writing perspective, it makes sense because if you're trying to be a comedy writer, it's almost always not the first thing you think of.
Right.
That's the funniest. It's like the fifth or the sixth thing that you think of that's going to be the funniest take or the funniest line. So the idea that comedy writers are keeping like lists of different line deliveries,
Right.
or like I think you watch The Good Place, right?
Yeah.
One of the writers for The Good Place, I think it's Megan Amram, if I remember correctly. I follow her on Instagram, and she'll have like lists for the shop names in The Good Place.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's like part of like comedy writing. But like the constant like throwing out of lines, I think
Yeah.
it kind of gets a little exhausting. I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm surprised that they didn't have even more names for it, because it felt like I wonder if those terms were common terms, or if like that's the first kind of time. Like I wonder if choking the chicken feels like it was kind of common, but flogging the dolphin, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like they might have made a couple up
Right.
just for that sequence. But yeah, we get the famous cum scene.
Yeah, where Stiller lets his load loose and then goes to clean it up, can't find it. There's a knock on the door. Mary's at the door. Hey, what's that on your ear? Hair gel? And takes it and swipes her hair. Gross.
Super gross.
Yeah.
But I mean, somewhat funny. I was surprised that the cum made her hair look like a sperm.
Right.
Like a tail of
The
a
tail of the sperm. I didn't catch that.
Yeah. But I don't know. This time around, it wasn't. Maybe we've just been shocked so much more. We've been shocked so much more since that
Right.
scene. It like has none of the like,
Right.
like reaction from me that it did in the past.
And there's something sort of cute and adorable about that cut of like her grabbing the gross load from his ear and then like swiping it through her hair, and then cut to her hair just sticking up like that. I don't know. They like, yeah, there's something about Mary. No, there's something about this movie that it really knows how to cut to a joke.
Oh yeah, no, they use the editing perfectly.
Yes. So then we go on some dates with Ted, and we kind of get the complete opposite of Healy, where
Right.
those dates were kind of disasters and full of Healy being Healy, whereas Ted just is like effortlessly flirting with Mary.
Right.
And they get along together really great. They go out for corn dogs.
They talk about meat on a stick
Yeah.
and in a cone.
That was funny. And then while Ted is having the perfect date with Mary, we get more information on Tucker, which is he's a pizza delivery boy, Norm, who is in love with Mary ever since the first time he saw her. They go to the bar, and he's like, even at the bar, he's reviled and hated. And, but it turns out, yeah, he's just a normal guy who's infatuated with Mary.
Just another Mary stalker.
Yep. And then, in order to mess up the plan, instead of giving the dog sleeping pills, right, to calm the dog, Healy's idea is to give the dog speed, to make the dog super ramped up, super aggressive. And I love that part where he's like, "This, do you think this is too many? We're not going to kill the dog." He's like, "I never said that." Great little joke.
I never said that. I like that. And I like that Magda also got the speed.
Got the speed, right. So then we come home from the date and Magda is in full on speed mode. The dog is in full on speed mode. And the dog and Ted have like you like MMA. Here's a straight up
they have a
brawl.
They have a brawl. Not only do I like MMA, I'm what they like to call a just bleeder. I like the fights that really I don't like brawlers necessarily. I think that a skilled fighter is always better to watch. But yeah, it gets into
This is a throwdown.
This was a just bleed throwdown between Ted and Puffy, or really Puffy the puppet, because I hope no animals were harmed in the making of this movie.
It's I don't know, something about fake animals being wrestled. It always looks bad, but in this movie, because it's so cartoony and because they kind of don't try to make it look realistic, it looks good.
I think it's funny because it doesn't look realistic. If
Yeah.
it looked realistic, it wouldn't be hilarious at all.
Right.
But yeah, yeah, that's a really great fight scene.
Yeah.
I liked when he goes to open the bathroom and you can hear the dog throwing its body against the door. And he's like, well, what kind of dog is he?
Yeah.
Oh, he's like Benji. He's a terrier.
Yeah. Like Benji.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. I thought that was great.
So then we get the dog in the cast, which is of course a great little joke. But then very quickly into this movie kind of spirals into its third act super quick.
Oh, it goes real fast.
Because everything that happens from here on out is bam, 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 bam. We get the Pat Healy letter, which is Mary finds out that Ted hired Pat, which I feel like could be resolved in this kind of simple conversation. Mm-hmm. But at this point, because that's my biggest pet peeve, is when misunderstandings can be resolved in one line of dialogue.
Yeah.
But I feel like in this movie, it's Ted does kind of dig himself into enough of a hole, and Healy is enough of a scumbag where it would take more of a conversation instead of a simple line of dialogue. So I feel like when she kicks him out and kind of throws him out and decides she's done with him, it does feel kind of justified, and it doesn't feel quite... I don't feel as bad for Ted.
Yeah, no, he did do something really wrong. And I mean, although Pat isn't a killer, he
Right.
still introduced the scumbag into Mary's life
Right.
by having him look for her. And then we
But-
know that she's been stalked in the past,
Right.
too, and had to change her name.
Yeah. So it is. I mean, he didn't. It's not like he set Pat on her. Like, it's not
No.
like he didn't know that Healy was that much of a scumbag.
Right.
So I feel like he's still in the clear. And obviously, at the end of the day, Mary ends up with him. So, but yeah, I don't know. It just.
What about Bret Favre?
Favre. So then Ted goes to Sully's apartment where Healy's staying, and it's sort of like an everyone loves Mary situation. Norm and Healy come back, and Ted confronts them, and there's basically they all three are kind of like fighting over who should be with Mary and who loves her the most. And there's the great joke of like, Healy thinks that the snake ate the dog, but then really the snake ate Sully. And so then we get to Dom. Dom is stealing Mary's shoes.
Because Dom is actually Woogie.
Whoa! Plot twist. Yeah, Woganowski. Come on. That's a great line too, of like,
Yeah.
when we find out Dom's last name is Woganowski, it's like, yeah, it should have been obvious.
Right. And I mean, what an ultimate stalker move to befriend your ex-girlfriend's other. Well, they barely even got to date, but from Woogie's
Right.
perspective,
Yeah.
Ted stole Mary.
Right.
But yeah, that's the ultimate stalker move is befriending people in your stalkie's life. So
And Dom
A
is
plus stalking from Dom.
Yeah, and Dom is in full on crazy mode. He's got his hives have broken out, and like,
Have you ever gotten hives? I have. It's pretty extreme. Like they didn't look like as pustully as his apparently do, but yeah, getting hives sucks.
yeah, the one on his eyeball is,
Yeah, that looked like a cyst.
yeah,
Hives are a little bit different.
and I couldn't imagine the makeup, all that eye makeup that he had to get the hives. Like, it looked so real. It looked
It
gross.
really looked like he had like a cyst.
Yeah.
It was awful. But yeah, I thought, again, amazing acting from Chris Elliott.
So great. Chris Elliott, full on crazy mode. Then he starts to kind of wrestle shoes away from Mary, and Mary starts yelling. Norm and Healy are spying on Mary, of course. So they rush in to stop Woogie from being Woogie. And Mary has to then confront Tucker about how Tucker is not really Tucker, and Norm comes clean. And then Ted comes back, and then they have a whole big everyone's fighting over Mary scene.
Well, yeah, the other guys are like, you have to choose between us.
Right.
Which is so silly because it's like, none of you are good.
It's great because that's the typical scene that you would expect, but it's great because Mary's kind of like, no.
No, all of you are awful. And then, yeah.
And then Bret Favre comes in with Warren on his back, and Bret Favre is the Bret that they keep talking about. And it's so funny when you go back, like the first time you watch this movie, if you don't know the joke, when you go back, all the times they mention Bret.
To Bret.
Yeah, it's like he's the big corn-fed dummy, and he or the big corn-fed hunk, and he lives up north, and he's a sports guy.
Who did he play for?
Green Bay Packers.
Oh, okay.
And so it's just funny how like it's so obvious. Like, it's so obvious. But Bret, I don't know. There's just something about the name. I mean, Bret Favre is 2 T's. I'm a 1 T Bret myself. So it's not quite the same.
You know, I'm a 1-0 more, too. There's a lot of 2-0 mores. But yeah, we're part of the one-letter gang.
Yeah. Represent.
Represent.
So Bret Favre is super into Mary still. he shows up with Warren, and he's basically there to get Mary back, and he's the one that Mary should be with, right? Because he's perfect for her, and she's perfect for him, and Warren loves him, and he likes Warren. But on the way out, Ted says goodbye to Warren and lifts the headphones off of Warren's ear and says goodbye. And of course, Warren only lets people touch his ears if you really trust them.
And he trusts Ted.
Right. So on the way out, I think it's a great fake out because he's sobbing like a little baby.
I love that so much because he tries to look so cool when he's like, he's the one who really should be with you, Mary.
Right.
And they're like, you're going to tell us you don't love this girl? I don't. You know, like, and then he's sobbing. It's
and then,
so great.
he leaves on such a high note, but then once he's alone, he's sobbing like a little baby. And, but then the song starts playing.
I love the song.
And it's so great because it feels like Mary ending up with Brett Favre. It's not like just some Brett.
She's back with her old boyfriend.
It's just so funny. And then, of course, Mary comes back for Ted, and they end up together. And as they're kissing, the old fisherman guy who slept with Magda was only sleeping with Magda to get to Mary, and shoots the singer.
I thought that was great.
Yeah,
I thought that
it's a
was
nice
great.
little tag on the movie.
I felt like the Mary's line, "Don't you remember? I'm a Niners fan," is such a guy wrote this line wanting a woman to say it. Like, I don't know who the Niners fan is and the Farley brothers, maybe both of them, but like they're like, Niners fan. I liked the post-credit sequence too, the "Build Me Up Buttercup."
Yeah,
I thought that was so cute.
Why don't more movies do that?
Oh, that was so cute and fun. I especially liked it when so you had when Dom finds out that Ted was arrested because he's watching TV while his wife is blowing him, and then in the credit sequence, she's on the couch and he's blowing her. I thought that was cute and funny.
Yeah, it's a nice little reversal, and she treats him like he treated her. She
pushes his head down, equal opportunity. But yeah, I thought like the "Build Me Up Buttercup" scene was hilarious, and then they do it with the guys at the rest stop, and
it's I don't know why more movies don't show outtakes or do like a musical number at the end.
Yeah.
I honestly just don't understand why that's not a thing.
Me neither. And I thought it was just so fun and cute. Like, do you think to film that, they just had them sing that song in every location and then just cut it all together again?
Yeah.
How many times did they have to sing that song, you think?
Probably 12.5.
I feel like I wonder if that would be something fun, like you're ending the day of work and you're like, it's Buttercup time.
Yeah. There's got to be things like you're on a comedy set. Do silly things.
Yes.
Ben Stiller, I said, isn't my favorite comedian, but he did do, I remember watching the HBO special feature. This is before the realm of like internet TV. I wanted to watch something on HBO. So before, like in between movies, they would always show like HBO first looks or Inside. I think it was called Inside Looks. And it was the director for Night at the Museum talking about how Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson had to work on this scene together with some other actor or something. And most of the movie was improv or whatever. Right. But he kept saying how this one scene just wasn't working, so they kept rewriting the scene and rewriting the scene and rewriting the scene and rewriting the scene, and they even had to like take the whole day off and come back to it the next day because the scene just was not working, and they couldn't find where they were coming from or something. And then finally they wrote the scene and they got everything perfect, and then they went to film it and they used none of what they wrote. They improv the whole scene, but they had to have, like, you can't just improv something and make it good. you have to already be starting from a good place.
Right. The
in order
process
to
is
improv
important.
it and make
Yeah.
it. Right. So, I mean, Ben Stiller, I don't know. It seems like he's a smart, funny guy. And it seems like the Farrelly brothers are smart, funny people. And it seems like if you're going to make a comedy, just have a good time. Like that sort of comedy is contagious. The energy is contagious. It really
Right.
feels like everyone on this movie was having a good time.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I again, that's what I like about it is like the warmth of it too. Whereas like I think sometimes like smart and funny can combine to be really cold and cynical or like dark. Whereas like this movie is just very light and fun. And that's something that I appreciate.
Yeah,
If it's going to be funny and intelligent.
I agree. Yeah. So I'm really curious, though, to hear
Oh, what this horror version is?
how you're going to turn this around.
Okay, I decided that if there's a horror version of this movie, I've decided to make it a zombie movie.
Whoa.
Yes, I don't know why I thought that Z-Day was really going to enhance this plot. But so I decided to call it There's Something Wrong with Mary.
Okay. Yeah.
Not too original.
No.
But still, so first act, Ted still can't get over Mary, his date to the senior prom, and he still hires a PI to find Mary based on Dom's suggestion. Pat does find Mary, and he also does the same thing of lying to Ted so that he can have her for himself. Pat and Mary start dating, but then Pat starts to notice some weird shit about Mary that he didn't before. Like Mary doesn't eat anything in front of him. And then it all goes to hell when he finds Mary's severed ear in the sink and then witnesses Mary reattach her ear, and then she grabs a foot from the fridge and starts munching on it.
Whoa.
So Mary is an intelligent zombie. And then at the end of the first act, she figures that she's been found out and she eats Pat.
Good.
Good. So then Ted learns that Pat moved to Miami, and that Mary is still hot. So he decides to take the road trip to Florida to see her. But this being the onset of a zombie outbreak, as Ted gets closer to Miami, the zombie outbreak intensifies, and Ted basically has to road trip his way through the undead to get to Mary, and he's, feels compelled to keep going because he wants to save her, not knowing the truth. So then we get to after the road trip portion where maybe he runs into zombie Harlan James or something like that. So Act 3, Miami is just teeming with zombies at this point.
Whoa.
And Ted does some investigative work to retrace Pat's steps, and he finds out where Mary lives, but it's surrounded by zombies. And in the climactic action scene, Ted has to go through, Tower of Death style and face off against these zombies. Like Warren, of course, is like a super strong zombie. He has to fight through him. He has to fight through Tucker too. Maybe Tucker's like a zombie, invertebrate zombie. Maybe he's like a four-legged zombie.
Hell
he's
yeah.
crawling around and stuff. But yeah, he
Doing
goes,
the spider walk?
Yeah, doing a spider walk.
Upside down?
Yeah, on the wall.
Yeah.
I'm just talking full Resident Evil zombie
Hells
everything. And so then Ted, after battling through Mary's army of the undead, he finally gets to Mary, who then turns around and goes right for his throat with her zombie chompers. So it does have a bummer ending. He gets to Mary, but he ends up getting eaten.
I'm shocked. You're just going to end the movie with Ted dead?
I maybe I could have thought of something more satisfying, but I just was like, I just want
Nope.
Mary to be
Shocker.
queen of the zombies.
It's I mean, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but Drag Me to Hell has just a great ending that's just like, nope, fuck you.
Yeah, I love that movie so much.
It's Justin Long.
Justin Long is great in that movie. We've talked about Drag Me to Hell quite a bit. I know that that's a mutual
It's
love
so
for
good.
us.
It's so good. And they kill a cat in that movie.
They do.
And it's still a great movie.
They do. A really cute cat, too.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why my brother is also a fan of that movie. He wants to show it to his wife, but he won't because of the cat getting killed in the movie. It does get killed off screen.
Yes. He should know that Sonia, my wife, is a huge cat person. I mean, we have 3 cats at home. Mm-hmm. Sonia is a huge cat person, and Sonia loves animals of all shapes and sizes.
This is true.
And I explicitly told her that there was going to be a cat death in this movie when we were going to watch it. And she was not looking forward to that. But despite all of that, she even thought it was a great movie.
Oh.
It's such a likable movie.
So cat lovers, you can handle
Yeah.
it. You can handle it.
It's a fine cat death.
I really also like that it's lampshaded by the "Hang in there" poster.
Yeah. Aw, poor kitty. Now I'm sad.
Yes, that was very sad. At least, Puffy doesn't die.
Right. Puffy just gets the full body cast.
Yeah, he just gets extremely, extremely hurt. So tell me, what was your horror pitch for Mary?
Ooh boy. Mine is going to be called #Stalker.
Ooh, #Stalker.
Wow. This is in a world where Ted plays kind of like a nobody who wants to be a somebody. Mm-hmm. And he also wants to be a serial killer.
Oh, really?
Yep, Ted's got the serial killer bug. So he goes online and he finds this like subreddit group, this sort of like anonymous type group full of killers. And
8chan.
Yes, 8chan. So he goes on to 8chan and he fits right in. And in order to they have like initiation killings, right? Just like if you want to be part of a gang, you got to have initiation killing.
Right.
So it's like they give you a randomized, like, the sex dice where it's like feet, mouth. Like,
yes.
Whoa. They give you like a randomized killing where, he's got to use a meat hook and kill someone by stabbing them in their left eye. Whoa.
That takes some precision.
I know. And so the first act is him kind of like his daily life and what he does, for his day job and stuff, but then his secret nightlife where he goes online and he's typing with what's the best way to dismember a body? He's like on this like serial killer chat room. And then once he gets to be a part of the gang, it's like different levels.
Right.
And most people just settle for being in the gang, but he wants to be like the top person in the thing. So he enters.
Gotta make those leaderboards.
Yes, make the leaderboard, baby. So he enters the game of, they call it like the Mary game, let's say, where they publicly post on the website they want this person, Mary, dead by, and they give a date and they give a stipulation. So one of the stipulations for Mary is it has to look like an accident. And if the person gets caught or whatever, then they're out of the group. So, and I don't know what the stipulation is. Like, let's say it's like by fire or by gunshot or something. And here's the thing, though. The longer it takes for that person to kill Mary, the more stipulations they put on it. So the harder the challenge gets.
Okay.
So it's like you have 2 weeks to kill Mary by fire and make it look like an accident. And after 2 weeks, you have to kill Mary by fire, and it has to be, within a certain time slot, or it has to be in a certain location. So it's a really cool idea of like the longer it takes him to stalk her, the harder it's going to get. So he starts stalking her, and then while he's stalking her, he sees a group of people tailing him.
Oh.
Whoa. So then he thinks it's the cops, right? And that's no bueno, because if he gets caught by the cops, he's out. Yeah. So he has to stalk the cops who are stalking him, and he finds out it's not cops at all. It's other serial killers who are trying to kill Mary, because Ted doesn't have the specific. It's not like the initiation killing where they're like, hey, hey, Shira, go kill this guy, and then you can be part of the group. This is a public type thing. So whoever kills Mary, it's like an exclusive bragging right.
So it's like the Purge,
they get to join,
but with one person?
How do you mean?
Like the Purge, like Purge Night, everyone gets to kill everyone, but in this scenario,
right, but in this one it's also secretive.
Oh, but it's a secret conspiracy.
Right, so it's not like, you have to be part of the serial killer of 8chan, which is a secret 8chan, in order to get the information. The thing is, I don't know how we're going to do it, but Ted thinks he's the only one stalking her. Like, maybe he gets an email saying, like, your next victim is Mary, but what he doesn't realize is that same email has been blasted to, like, everyone in the group.
Oh,
and whoever kills Mary first gets secret access to, like, the Platinum Club. Or whatever, the Crimson Club,
where all the real killers hang
out. So he starts stalking the stalkers and Mary. So it's a cool thing where, like, the more he stalks the stalkers, the more information he learns about Mary, because the more they've stalked Mary, right? So it's like he goes inside their car and flips open their notebook, and it's like, oh, Mary always has gym class, but he would know that, but other information or whatever.
Right.
So then the third act is when all hell breaks loose, and we get the killer comes in, and the killer is a heavily armed maniac who hunts the other killers.
Oh yeah.
Because he's not in it for the Crimson Club, he's just in it for the thrill of the kill. And he's like,
and he likes a good hard kill.
Right. So he's kind of like, he's not Dexter, because Dexter had this like self-righteous.
He had his code.
I only watched one episode of Dexter, but yeah, he's got like a code. This killer is more like the Plague from Hobo with a Shotgun.
Okay.
Where it's like, he's all like metalled out, and he's like, he's kind of like the bikers from Mandy. He's like
or the biker from Raising Arizona.
Or the biker from Raising Arizona. Yeah. So he wants to kill the other killers. So then it becomes this crazy chase of like him just slaughtering these killers, and Ted kind of gets mixed up in that because he's stalking the killers. So then the killer comes after him, but Ted is in close proximity to Mary, and Ted's really good at escaping from the killer. So the killer is like, fine, if I can't get Ted, I'm going to get Mary, because then Ted will come to me.
Right.
So then the killer goes after Mary, and then Ted has to save Mary.
To kill her?
To kill her. But by saving Mary and killing the killer, he also gets killed.
Oh, no.
So it's like he wins, but the metal guy, maybe he's got like a predator self-destruct type thing or something. and so by killing him to save Mary, he's killed. And then Mary's just left in this like room. She's probably covered in blood. And she's like, what is going on?
But she lives.
And she like walks out of the room all bloody. And she's like, that's crazy. Womp womp. And it ends on a happy note.
I'm glad, or not glad, but I find it interesting that neither of us decided to kill Mary for our horror.
Yeah, that is interesting.
We decided to keep her alive.
The final girl.
The final girl. She is a final
That's
girl.
Not what the final girl is, though.
Well, no, I mean...
The final girl isn't someone who just... Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's not... Technically and not technically.
Technically, but not. Yes, but no.
Yes, but no.
Yeah.
I like it. I like how different we decided to be. I
Yeah.
went zombies, you went serial killers.
Yeah.
I like it.
This movie is kind of a combination of I Saw the Devil, which I love because in that movie everyone turns out to be a killer.
Right.
And it's fucking great. And like everyone's got their own little serial killer gimmick, which is fantastic. But it's a combination of that and what's that movie that we just watched? The Hitcher. I was thinking of The Hitcher because I was thinking like every 20 minutes there has to be some new piece of information or twist or escalation.
Right.
I thought The Hitcher was great. I'm still thinking about that movie.
I enjoyed The Hitcher. The only thing that made me upset was the fact that Jennifer Jason Leigh had to die for C. Thomas. She just gets ripped in half for C. Thomas Howell's character development.
Yeah, but what a twist.
I mean, they went there.
What a scene.
It was a good scene.
Yeah.
It was a good scene. And I like that they actually went there. But yeah, another woman dying for plot development is...
Can't win them all.
But then we got the husband who died for plot development in The Descent, which was pleasant for me. I like that a lot. So tell me, who would you kill from There's Something About Mary?
You know, the person I would probably kill, I'd probably go Tucker.
You would kill Tucker?
Yeah.
Really?
Just, he messed everything up multiple times.
And he did pretend to be disabled, which is
Right.
highly, highly unethical.
I mean, I had more fun with Healy's sleaziness than I did with Tucker's sleaziness.
Right. Tucker was legitimately sabotaging the
Right.
good relationships
Yeah.
in Mary's life to give himself an in.
Yes.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Why? Who would you kill?
Who would I kill? It's hard to say. I don't want to kill Pat or Ted or even Tucker. I might kill Dom.
And you know why I didn't kill Dom, though?
Why?
It's because I really like Chris Elliott.
I like Chris Elliott, too. I even like Cabin Boy, which nobody likes that movie.
No.
You don't like that movie, I can tell from your face. I think Cabin Boy's hilarious.
Yeah, I'll have to rewatch it. I think the only time I saw it, which doesn't count, was on TV, Comedy Central.
Yeah, it was on
TV
Comedy
movies
Central
don't, yeah.
a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, maybe Dom, maybe Magda, just because
Magda.
if I were Mary, I would be frustrated with Magda.
That's a good choice.
All the time.
Yes.
All the time. Because they're next door neighbors. They're not even roommates, but Magda is always in that apartment.
Essentially a roommate.
Yeah, essentially a roommate. But yeah, Magda or Dom, probably.
Yeah, gotcha. That's a good choice.
All right. Is it time for Love Bites?
Love Bites, baby.
Love Bites. What's your love bite for this week?
Oh, it's a video game called Slay the Spire.
Wait, slay the what?
The Spire.
Slay
like a
the
tower.
Spire.
Right. And it's a roguelike, which means that the game is very short. You can beat it in one sitting, but the game is super duper hard and actively trying to kill you every single chance it gets.
Is it a side scroller?
No. It's a dungeon crawling, deck building card game.
Okay.
It's a fantasy game, and you'll notice a lot of fantasy tropes, but all of the characters look really unique and different.
Okay, that sounds really cool.
It's got this really cool twist on it where, yeah. I've been watching a lot of people play the game on Twitch. And it's just really interesting to watch other people play the game because I'm like, clearly this card's the best card that you should pick. And they're like, no, I'm going to go with this card and here's why. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a better reason why. But these people are playing the game at such a meta level where they're
Right.
thinking 20 steps ahead, where I'm still like, they're thinking about the final boss's fourth turn
Yeah.
on act one, whereas I'm thinking about, can I even just beat the boss in act one? Like, I don't know.
Right,
So
right.
it's really cool. Watching people who are good at the game play the game is like an art form. It's like MMA. Before I realized what MMA was, I was like, well, that's stupid. This is boring to watch. And then once I actually watched MMA with someone who did it and they explained it to me, like the judo aspect and the
Oh,
ground
yeah,
game, I
yeah.
was like, oh, this sport is really complicated.
Oh, it totally is. And I felt the same way when
Yeah.
I started watching, where like I just wanted to watch strikers. Like I
Right.
didn't really appreciate like the wrestling or jujitsu, but
Right.
like it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's just like NASCAR. If you're not into NASCAR, NASCAR is the most boring thing to watch. But
Right.
if you're into that game of attrition and, like, I don't know what I would call it, and not accuracy, but I don't know, like precision.
Precision.
Yeah. If you're
Yeah.
into that precision and attrition, it's like, oh shit, NASCAR is super interesting because there's
Right.
so many things going on, but I'm not into it, so it's boring.
Yeah. No, I hear that. I totally hear that. No, this game sounds not boring at all. It sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
I don't know how much it is. I think I bought it for 25, but it's also on Switch.
Oh yeah.
And I know that some people have Switches.
I have a Switch.
Whoa. So how about you? What's your love bite?
So I got a couple of bites this week. Number one is the movie Laura from 1944. Have you ever seen Laura?
I don't know.
I chose Laura because the theme of this week is stalkers. Laura is also a movie about stalkers, and like Mary, Laura has a collection of people around her who are obsessed with her. And so the movie starts off, Laura's been murdered, and this PI, or not a PI, he's a cop, is investigating her murder and talking to everyone she knows. And so he starts to get impressions about what kind of woman Laura was from the people in her life, and then figuring out who among them could be the killer.
This sounds good.
It's a really great movie, and that's just the opening premise. It
Right.
has a lot of really fun reversals.
Right.
Like, where the movie ends up going is actually not that predictable, even though it's from 1944. And then it was directed by Otto Preminger,
Okay.
who is a really great director from that era. So, again, if you want to see a black and white film that is dirty, is catty, like I feel like people have this mistaken notion that old movies are all wholesome, you know?
Right.
And that's not true at all. Like the people in Laura are always throwing out these insinuating lines. Like I think that you just kind of like how Southern people insult each other by giving targeted compliments that are actually mean. It's similar in old movies. Like people will say things or suggest things,
Right.
but they just don't do it in as direct a way as we do nowadays. And so I really think that if you're the kind of person who's like, I don't like old movies, try watching this one.
Right.
Because it's really good, and it's just great. Like again, it's probably my favorite noir of all time.
Whoa.
It's a great movie. And so that's my first recommendation. That is kind of a thriller. My second recommendation is a stalker love story. There's a book called Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. And funnily enough, like you were saying, anytime it's a stalker romance, it's going to be from the perspective of the stalker. And that's the case here. It takes place in 1999, right on the eve of Y2K. And this guy he does IT for a newspaper, and part of his job is to read the emails that make it through the warning filter. So if you work at a job where you use email, it's very likely that your emails are being monitored by the company that you work for, especially if there's content in those emails that they deem to be, bad or risky. So these two female reporters, their emails keep coming up in the folder, but instead of reporting them, the guy, Lincoln, he keeps reading them. Ooh. And he ends up falling in love with one of the girls through reading her emails. And it's actually, I think it's a really sweet story, even though he does stalk her, right, because he's reading her emails. And he does some stuff later that is more on par with real stalking. Like he goes to one of her boyfriend's shows, like he's like he has a band,
right?
And he goes to see them play. But the book it has like a very sweet tone, and then I think like we were very much there for 1999, and so some of the cultural references, because the girl he falls in love with is a movie reviewer for the newspaper, and so she'll mention the movies that she's going to go see, like Fight Club and stuff like that, and so it's very much oriented in that time and place in a way that feels very comforting. I don't know. I enjoyed the book a lot. I listened to it on audiobook, so if you're not someone who wants to read a book, who would rather listen to it, I think the audiobook is good too, and I would recommend it.
When did it come out?
Attachments, it came out in the 2000s. Like, I think it came out in like 2016 or something like that.
So kind of recently.
Somewhat recently, but not too recent.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a love story with stalking. But I think that it handles that aspect really well, and I like kind of the setup of being an IT guy for a newspaper and then reading these emails and being kind of like a third party to, like in the women, you're in the world of the women,
right?
Whereas like he's kind of getting like a third person view of what it's like when two women just talk to each other.
That sounds interesting.
I liked it. It's a good book. All right, then.
Okay.
Well, until next time.
Have a good time.
Have a good time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Necromancer is produced by Bret Dorman and Shira Moore. The theme song is Symphonia 3 by Kevin MacLeod on the album Oddities.